If I may start with the first question to Catherine. Over the last few years, and maybe going back to a decade, what's getting better, and is there anything getting worse?
Well, certainly people from Russia are allowed to travel, to foreign countries a lot more freely, and there is, in general, much greater freedom of expression, at least on the internet and to your friends, and in public. There's a greater variety of religious groups which are sort of jostling for membership, and public visibility. But unfortunately, I think increasingly the governments of this part of the world, as they're coming to terms with civil society and in a very wide sense, not just NGOs, look at religious groups and see that perhaps they're the one area of civil society that they have not totally, through laws, mainly very restrictive laws, not managed to curtail as much as they would like. And at the same time, I think also something I probably should have mentioned, that the Soviet system, out of which all the leadership comes, was very suspicious of religion, to put it mildly. And so the leaders still, for the most part, have that kind of suspicion, but also instrumentalize religion as a way of harnessing notions of national identity, and therefore they play to the majority religions, although they also, keep those religions within the restrictive laws that I've described. So it's a very complex picture. A lot of some groups, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses, increasingly are being viewed as extremist throughout this part of the world, and other religions that are viewed as new, such as evangelical Protestants, often also have a lot of problems. So it's a very complicated picture, because we're talking about, in the case of Russia, 10 time zones. So obviously it's a little hard to generalize, and the picture, as far as Russia is concerned, varies a lot from region to region, and a lot of it depends on how liberal or not the governor is, and what are the particular kinds of political pressures put on, and in some cases religious pressures put on the local government. So I don't want to sound entirely negative, because obviously there's a lot of positive stuff going on as well, but unfortunately, the governments don't want to lose control. So I think that's the major negative.
And one question to Mehmet. Regarding the PKK, I remember a news item that said that they saw the Gülen movement as a major threat to themselves and to recruitment. And you specifically spoke about, of course, Mardin, but is this replicated in other areas in southeast Turkey, northern Iraq? Are you able to elaborate, or was this specific to that particular city?
Well, it's not specific to that city, and Mardin is pretty much representative of actually southeastern Turkey, and I believe, our Mr. Bilal can vouch for that. It also represents the region as in general, because there are actually Kurds, Turks, Arabs, Assyrian Christians living in vast geography in that area. And right, I also read that news that PKK views these Hizmet movement initiatives as a threat to itself, normally, because they stand for everything that they are against. Actually, they are against those people rising up to responsibility to addressing their problems by themselves through cooperation with each other, instead of blaming for everything, for every problem, blaming the state. And of course, the more people are educated, the less they are prone to manipulation. I guess that's the reason why they are viewed as a threat to this organization. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to questions from the audience. I just received a message. Dr. Kamindov has had a personal emergency, so he sends his apologies, so I thought I should relay that. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We would ask that you stand just so we can, because we're taping this as well, so it may be difficult. Yes, please, sir, at the front.
Hi, my name is Kyle Rourke. I'm with the Department of State. I just have a question in the scope of the June 2010 violence in Kyrgyzstan between the ethnic Uzbeks and ethnic Kyrgyz. Could you talk a little bit of the role of the mosque as a mitigating factor for such violence, or conversely, if you think kind of the resurgence of Islam in Central Asia is serving as a driver of conflict, since some groups like the Uzbeks are more religious historically than the Kyrgyz?
Oh, I didn't talk about Kyrgyzstan particularly. Kyrgyzstan also, under the previous government, under the Bakiyev government, adopted a very restrictive religion law, probably as restrictive in many ways as the recent Tajik law. Although I think the Kyrgyz law was more against missionaries from afar, both Muslim and Christian. So, in fact, I just recently talked to some Kyrgyz parliamentarians and proposed that they reform that law, and they said, yes, it's on the books, and they've long advocated for that. Of course, it's easy since it was the previous government's law, but nevertheless, to be fair, they say that after the October parliamentary elections, this law will be reconsidered. As far as the mosque being a meeting ground, I suspect, I'm not positive of this, that mosques were divided along ethnic grounds. So Kyrgyz mosques, Kyrgyz went to one mosque and Uzbeks to another. And as you correctly observe, Uzbeks are more traditionally observant than Kyrgyz. So that's another complicating factor. But I would use this opportunity to say that I'm very concerned about the potential for future violence in the Fergana Valley as a whole, which is split up among Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, speaking on a personal level, because, as you know, on the May 2005 mass killings by the government of the protesters in Andijan, some of those causes are linked also to religious teachings of the 23 businessmen who were on trial. So that's in the Fergana Valley, Osh is in the Fergana Valley, and the ICG report on Tajikistan also hints that the very restrictive Tajik laws on religion can also be a factor. And since the Fergana Valley is the most densely populated part of the former Soviet Union, with these very strangely marked borders all meeting in this very densely populated part of Central Asia, I think one really has to be very concerned about the future there. So, but having said all that, I do think that religious leaders could and should be more involved in peacekeeping efforts and educational efforts of various kinds. So I've met some Uzbek religious leaders a few years ago who were here on an official exchange, and they said the thing about the Uzbek religion law that most disturbed them was the exclusion of children from religious education. So I think that's another thing that should be addressed. So in short, I think there should be more attention paid to the restrictive religion laws as a potential destabilizing factor in present and the future, and possibly also to think of ways of trying to make the governments of Central Asia see that their restrictive religion laws and practice is a destabilizing force and has profound security implications. It's a long answer, but...
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, add something to that. Well, Kyrgyzstan, I haven't studied that in detail yet, but I'm developing an interest in Kyrgyzstan because it presents a very unique case for the model that I talked about. Because, as you know, Kyrgyzstan is, you know, the capital is almost in the northern border, and Osh is at the bottom of the country, and the country is divided by huge mountain lines, and the capital almost has no control over, or no ability to serve to the southern part of country, which is densely populated by Uzbeks, and the sort of frictions or tensions between these groups are also further exacerbated by the political situation, political problems between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. But recently, when Kyrgyz Prime Minister opened a school that I well, the kind of school that I mentioned, the Gulen-inspired school in Osh, in actually 17 April, he said that, well, we recognize the problems that we are facing due to our diverse multi-ethnic structure, but we need more and more this type of initiatives, because these initiatives bring together our people of Uzbek origin or Kyrgyz origin or others. And these kind of initiatives create a sense of Kyrgyz nationality. They feel more Kyrgyz than Uzbek or other ethnic identity. So it's a unique case.